Hey everybody, welcome back to My Wings of Refuge. Y'all, I'm really excited today because I want to give you a little tour of my Back to Eden garden. So back in May, I believe it was May the 10th, is when I actually planted this garden, and I brought you along with me as we put it in and how we layered all those wood chips. And so if you remember, we topped it all off with fresh wood chips. And I chip those wood chips myself. So when we cut down a tree, I would literally put all the limbs with leaves and everything right through our wood chipper, and I would take those wagons of wood chips right away and put them right into my garden. And so the goal there is to have at least 4 inches of wood chips. And so you might remember me putting all those wood chips in there. You can see those leaves, and at first they were really green and they start to fade away. And now it's nice and brown. And so those wood chips are all still there, and they are breaking down very nicely. And so I want to show you exactly what those wood chips do. Now, I know so many people worry about wood chips. They are concerned that it's going to burn up their garden, or it's going to steal all the nitrogen and your stuff won't grow. I don't know if you can see these tomatoes behind me, but they're growing. They've only been in there 4 to 6 weeks, and they are already, some of them are taller than me. And not only do they have all this growth, but they're also producing. So let's take a closer look. Can you see these gorgeous wood chips? There's no green left in them, and everything looks very nicely. Now, one of the things I'm going to come in here today and do is trim the bottoms of my tomato plants about 1 foot from the ground. So, I made one really big mistake this year. Can you guess what that is? I eyeballed my rows, and I kind of wanted them a little closer because I wanted to get in as much as I could in my little garden. But as you can see, they're a little close, and I've got to be able to get in there to pick my tomatoes. But I do believe I can, because over here I'm going to have a space, and I will be able to reach through and grab them on this side. And then there's a middle row here that's a little bit wider, and I'll be able to go through there and pick those on this side and this side. And then over on the far side where my tomatillos are, I will be able to grab that outer side there as well. So I have removed as many suckers as possible, but now those little suckers grow so fast, and so I know I have missed some, and that is okay. Not everyone removes suckers. All of my tomatoes here are indeterminate, and so I can remove as many of those suckers as I want, and they keep growing. They grow incredibly well. And so from the far left, I have a row of tomatillos, and then I have Sans Morzanos, and I have Romas, but I also have my favorite Cherokee purples. And then over here on the final absolute row over here, I do have some of my peppers. My poblano peppers are down through there. Now, I have peppers planted in my raised beds in another location. And you know, we have the food forest in the back, which we will probably tour that next week. So here's my pepper side. We were on this end out here earlier looking this direction, and now I'm on the other side looking that direction. So here are my peppers, and again, this is where I'm going to have the most weeds. See here on the outer sides here, this tends to be where I get my weeds. Now, I have not had to pull weeds since I planted this garden. So today, I'm actually going to pull weeds. Do you have any idea how long this is going to take me? It might take me about 3 minutes because there just aren't any weeds. If you can see around this edge, I really didn't even put the wood chips that close to this edge. These are actually on the other side of the fence. Okay, so here, I don't know if you can see it, but in this very edge here is the last of my garlics, and I'm actually going to pull those today. I've pulled all the other garlics. I had actually 2 other large garlic beds. I've already pulled those. They are actually drying. Got those garlics pulled. Gonna leave them there for a few days to dry before I take them in. You can see it's blooming and has some babies. Now the thing about tomatillos are they will make this like little green balloon. It's like a paper balloon, and the actual fruit grows on the inside. You'll know they're ready when it drops to the ground. Okay, so let's look at this outer edge here, the inside outer edge of my garden. Around the garlics here. Those are my weeds. This is the area that I tend to get weeds, and they are very easy to pull. But if you take a look through the rest of the garden here, there really aren't any other weeds. Let's go look around. These weeds here in the corner are actually growing from the other side of the fence. And even though I weed eat this, sometimes I have to reach in and just pull a few of these. So here's a sideways look here. See those beautiful babies right there? But no weeds. I have some limbs I might need to tie up, but no weeds. Okay, so we're looking down our aisles here. I know it's probably hard to see, but other than my tomatoes, which we're going to remove these bottom limbs here in just a few minutes. But until then, I see no weeds, but I do see lots of tomatoes. So another thing about this Back to Eden garden that I have to tell you is I have never watered this garden. Any of my Back to Eden gardens where I have the strawberry patch, I have my blackberry patch, I have the raspberry patch, I have the garlics and peppers even across the way, they're all done Back to Eden garden style. Even our food forest, which I'm going to give you that tour next week, it is all Back to Eden garden style. And so not only am I not spending my time pulling weeds, I'm also not spending any time watering, and that is a huge savings for me, time savings. I'm busy. There's so much to do here on the farm always. I do work a full-time job. I am home most days, but I do work. And I'm also on a lot of committees. I'm actually a busy person, and it takes a lot to keep the farm going. I mean, there's constantly things to do here on the farm. So I don't have to spend a lot of time pulling weeds, nor do I have to spend a lot of time watering. I have never watered this garden. So I'm just going to get down on these, and anything from about a foot off the ground, I'm just going to cut. And any suckers that I might see, I'll cut those as well. That one's good. Moving on to the next one. I don't like to leave anything laying in here because if it has disease or bugs or anything like that, I want it out. So I'm making a pile outside of my fence, which I'll pick up later and put in the compost pile. And I just found my first tomato worm, which we will remove him. So I got my first row here, trimmed about a foot under above the ground. And you'll see I do have one limb about there. It actually has tomatoes on it, so I left it. And I dropped a little limb down there that I'll get in a minute. So now I'm going to start my next row. So while I'm under all of these tomatoes, I like to really check and investigate really well just to make sure if you see any leaves with nibbles on them or black poo on them, it's a good sign that there is a tomato worm nearby. So far, I've only seen one. That tomato worm was a baby, and I haven't seen anything else. And check your tomatoes too. That one has a tiny spot, but I think it'll be okay. So I'm just gonna gather all of my scraps here and toss them in the compost. My chayote is growing like crazy. And then I have my blackberries, and they are so close to being ready. There's even a few of them ready to pick right now. And do you remember the video we did on the strawberry fountain? Well, look at her now. Nice and clean. I only saw one tomato worm, and it was fed to the chickens. Now we have some good airflow, and we'll keep an eye out for more of those tomato worms. So I've used absolutely zero pesticides. I've actually not had to use any of the diatomaceous earth or the neem oil so far this year. I have not added rabbit manure since I planted this garden. But if you don't have access to rabbit manure or chicken manure or sheep manure, you can always add in some fish emulsion. Or maybe you have some compost tea. You can even amend your soil in the off season or early on in the season with some alfalfa meal. You can buy a really big bag at your local co-op or tractor supply store usually, and it's not very expensive, and a little bit goes a long way. Remember the kiwi arbor we built? Well, my kiwi is doing fantastic. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please give us a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Stay tuned next week. We're going to take a tour and go back through that food forest that's in the back of our property, and we'll see what has happened in the last 5 to 6 weeks since we were there last. Stay tuned.